Captain Elias Drake had seen many worlds, many battles, and many faces of fear, but nothing had prepared him for Scythera. From the observation deck of his ship, he stared at the glowing purple forests below, their towering trees swaying in strange patterns, illuminated by bioluminescent plants. Strange creatures flitted between the branches, their wings shimmering like glass. The planet was beautiful, dangerous, and utterly alien. Elias adjusted his uniform, the weight of his mission pressing on his shoulders. This wasn't a scouting mission. This wasn't a simple patrol. He had been assigned something far riskier: rescuing Princess Leora, the daughter of the alien queen, from a rogue faction within her own people. The idea that a human would be tasked with saving a Zitharan royal was almost unthinkable. Humans and Zitharans had been enemies for decades. Wars had been fought, cities destroyed, and countless lives lost. And yet here he was, walking into the heart of enemy territory, expected to protect someone who, under normal circumstances, might have considered him the enemy. Elias took a deep breath, letting the recycled air of the ship fill his lungs. He had no illusions about the danger ahead. Scythera was not forgiving to outsiders, and even Zitharan soldiers loyal to the Queen were unpredictable. But he also knew that he could not refuse the mission. Honor, duty, and the fragile hope of bridging two worlds weighed more heavily than fear. As the ship descended through the dense atmosphere, he reviewed the mission again in his mind. The intelligence reports were clear. Princess Leora had been trapped in the outskirts of a city called Virath, a place known for its labyrinthine streets and volatile population. The rogue faction sought to use her as a bargaining tool, a way to destabilize the Queen's rule. Time was short. Every minute she remained in their hands increased the risk of injury or worse. The landing was turbulent. The ship shook violently as it passed through the thick electric clouds that covered Zithera's lower atmosphere. Elias gripped the seat tightly, muscles tense, eyes sharp. When the ship finally touched down, a faint hum of alien energy vibrated through the floor, a reminder that this world obeyed its own rules, not human ones. Elias stepped out onto the planet. The air was thick with a sweet metallic scent, and every sound seemed amplified. The whisper of leaves, the distant roar of unseen creatures, the hum of Zitharan energy sources. He took his first steps carefully, scanning the horizon. He wasn't alone. His team, small and specialized, fanned out around him, ready for any threat. But Elias felt the weight of this mission alone. Decisions would have to be made in seconds. Mistakes could be fatal. They moved quickly, using the shadows of towering trees and rocky formations to hide from patrols. Elias led the way, relying on instinct and training. Every corner of the landscape was unfamiliar, every sound potentially dangerous. He could see how the rogue faction had used the terrain to their advantage. Hidden traps, false paths, and energy barriers designed to slow intruders. Yet Elias pressed on, determined to find Leora. Hours passed. The alien sun shifted, casting long shadows that danced across the forest floor. Finally, they reached the outskirts of Virath. The city was a mix of organic and mechanical architecture. Buildings grew like trees from the ground, their surfaces pulsating with light and energy. Bridges arched between towers like delicate vines, and energy fields shimmered over plazas, protecting the citizens from environmental hazards. From above, it looked beautiful. From the ground, it was a maze. Elias crouched behind a cluster of glowing vines, peering through a handheld scanner. The signal was faint but steady. It was her. Leora was alive, and she was nearby. Relief surged through him, but he quickly pushed it aside. The moment they located her, the danger would increase. The rogue faction would be alerted. Timing would be everything. He motioned for his team to move silently, each step measured, each breath controlled. They advanced through the city, blending with the shadows, avoiding patrols and bypassing security systems. Elias felt the tension in every nerve. He knew that any sudden move could trigger an alarm, yet he also knew that hesitation could mean failure. Finally, they found her. Leora was cornered in a narrow alley, her tall, graceful form surrounded by heavily armed rebels. Her long hair, a shimmering silver, caught the light of the nearby energy lamps. Her eyes widened when she saw humans approaching, and Elias felt a pang of understanding. Fear and mistrust were natural, but there was no time for hesitation. "Stay calm," Elias whispered to his team. "Focus and protect her. We get her out no matter what." The rebels noticed them at the same moment. Shouts echoed through the alley, sharp and alien, carrying an edge that made Elias's heart race. Without hesitation, he moved forward. The first attack came fast, a swinging energy baton aimed at Leora. Elias intercepted it, knocking the weapon aside and sending the attacker stumbling back. His team followed, creating a protective circle around the princess. It was chaos. Sparks flew as energy weapons clashed, the alien architecture groaning under the strain. Yet Elias stayed focused. Every move was calculated. Every decision counted. He could see Leora trembling, but also watching him closely. She wasn't screaming or panicking. She was studying him. Perhaps she realized in some instinctive way that he was her protector, not her enemy. The battle seemed endless, but eventually they broke through. Elias led Leora and his team into a hidden passage, one of the few paths that avoided the main patrols. They ran through narrow corridors and climbing platforms, every step bringing them closer to safety. The sounds of pursuit echoed behind them, but Elias refused to look back. Forward was the only option. At last, they emerged into an open area on the outskirts of the city. The air was cleaner here, and the alien sky stretched endlessly above them. Leora's breathing was heavy, but her posture had straightened. She looked at Elias with a mixture of gratitude and awe. He offered a small nod, acknowledging her strength and courage. "You did well," he said quietly, his voice steady. "You stayed calm." "That helped us." Leora nodded, her alien features softening. She didn't speak in words he could understand, but the gesture carried meaning. Elias realized that this mission was more than a rescue. It was a meeting of worlds. Trust was being built slowly, carefully between human and Zitharan. As the sun began to set over Zithara's forests, Elias knew their journey was far from over. The rogue faction was still at large, and the dangers ahead were even greater. But for the first time, he felt something he hadn't felt in years: hope. Hope that one human could make a difference even in the heart of an enemy world. Hope that courage, honor, and selflessness could transcend the barriers of species, language, and war. And so, under the alien sky, with a princess at his side and a dangerous path ahead, Captain Elias Drake took the first step into a story that would change not only his life, but the future of two worlds. The purple glow of Zithara's forest stretched endlessly before Captain Elias Drake and Princess Leora. Though the city of Vyrath lay behind them, their mission was far from over. The rogue faction that had captured Leora would not give up easily. They would hunt relentlessly, determined to reclaim the princess and use her as a weapon. Elias knew this journey would test every skill, every instinct, and every ounce of courage he possessed. Leora walked slightly behind him, her steps careful but steady. She had recovered some composure, but the tension in her body remained. Elias could feel her awareness, her eyes constantly scanning, alert for danger. It was natural. This world had trained her in survival. Yet Elias realized that beneath her graceful exterior lay a sharp mind and a will that could rival any human's. "Stay close," Elias instructed quietly. "We need to move fast but smart." "They are tracking us." Leora nodded, understanding without hesitation. Though the two could not speak the same language perfectly, communication had become instinctive. A glance, a gesture, a shift in posture, it was enough. Elias appreciated this unspoken understanding. It reminded him that courage and trust did not require words. They entered the forest, where enormous trees twisted toward the sky, their branches glowing with bioluminescent light. Strange creatures scuttled across the ground, some with translucent bodies, others with sharp mandibles that clicked like metal. Elias adjusted his rifle, moving carefully. Every step on the soft alien soil created tiny vibrations that could be detected by predators or enemy sensors. Hours passed as they moved silently. Elias led the way, scanning the environment for threats. Leora, despite her unfamiliarity with human tactics, kept pace with remarkable agility. At one point, a low growl echoed through the forest. Elias froze, signaling Leora to stop. Out of the shadows emerged a creature with 6 legs and glowing eyes. It lunged forward, but Elias acted swiftly, using the butt of his rifle to push it back. Leora instinctively grabbed a branch, defending herself with surprising strength. Together they forced the creature to retreat into the shadows. "Not bad," Elias murmured with a faint smile. "You're tougher than you look." Leora gave a small, almost shy nod. Elias knew that this journey would change them both. He saw strength in her beyond royalty. She was brave, resourceful, and determined. He realized that the princess he was protecting was not just a child in need of saving. She was a leader in the making, capable of inspiring an entire species. As night fell, the forest transformed. The glowing plants illuminated their path, but shadows deepened between the trees. The air was cooler, carrying the scent of unknown flora. Elias decided to make a temporary camp. They needed rest, but more importantly, they needed to plan the next move. He cleared a small area and set up a perimeter with energy sensors and tripwires. Leora watched, curiosity shining in her eyes. Elias showed her how to stay hidden, how to detect approaching threats, and how to move silently. She observed closely, her fingers brushing the sensors as if memorizing their design. Elias smiled faintly. Knowledge was as important as strength in survival. During the quiet hours, Leora finally spoke. Her voice soft but clear in the human tongue she had learned from early interactions with other humans. "Why risk yourself for me?" Elias paused. The question was simple yet profound. He looked at her, her silver eyes reflecting the soft glow of the forest. "Because it's the right thing to do," he said finally. "Because a life matters, no matter whose it is. And because someone has to stand for what is right even when it's dangerous." Leora considered his words, a small smile forming. She had grown up in a world where power and strategy often mattered more than morality. To hear someone speak of duty and honor without expectation of reward was new, and strangely comforting. Morning arrived, painting the forest in shades of violet and blue. Elias and Leora resumed their journey, moving cautiously through valleys and along ridges. The rogue faction was relentless, and Elias knew it was only a matter of time before they would be pursued again. He made sure to take routes that were less obvious, even if they were slower. Every decision had weight. Every wrong turn could be fatal. By midday, they encountered a bridge of natural energy, a crystalline formation stretching over a deep ravine. Elias studied it carefully. The energy pulses were unstable. One wrong step could trigger a collapse. He tested the surface with his foot and then motioned for Leora. "Careful. Step where I step. Don't rush." They crossed slowly, moving in synchrony, their trust in each other unspoken but complete. Halfway across, the bridge trembled slightly under their weight. Elias instinctively grabbed Leora's hand, steadying her. Her eyes widened, but she trusted him completely. The moment was small, fleeting, yet it built a connection stronger than words could convey, a bond forged in danger and trust. Once across, they found themselves in a rocky canyon. The rogue faction had left signs of pursuit, energy traps, broken terrain, and distant patrol lights. Elias knew they had little time. He pointed toward a narrow path that wound around the canyon walls. "This way. We can lose them in the cliffs." As they climbed, Leora spoke again, her voice tinged with awe. "Your courage?" "It is unusual. Humans are brave." Elias chuckled lightly. "Bravery isn't unique to humans. It's about choices. You can choose fear, or you can choose to act." Leora pondered this as they continued. Her admiration was evident not for Elias alone, but for what he represented. A species capable of honor, courage, and selflessness even in the face of overwhelming odds. Night fell again as they reached the cliff's edge. From there, they could see the rogue faction's outpost below, its lights flickering like tiny stars. Elias knew the next step was dangerous. They could sneak past, but the outpost would be alert now. They had to move carefully, or risk being discovered and captured again. He crouched beside Leora, pointing to the path ahead. "We go in small groups. I'll lead. You stay close. Follow exactly where I go. Trust me," Leora nodded. Her trust was not given lightly. Elias felt a profound respect for her, not as a princess, but as a fellow warrior in this moment. Together, they descended into the shadows, avoiding detection, using every ounce of skill, every lesson in patience and strategy. Suddenly, a faint sound reached Elias's ears, a low hum, mechanical and rhythmic. He froze, signaling Leora to stop. From the shadows, a patrol of rogue soldiers emerged, moving in formation. Elias took a deep breath. There was no turning back. They would have to fight or be captured. He whispered, "Ready?" Leora's silent nod was enough. Elias moved swiftly, disabling the first few attackers with precision. Leora followed, using improvised techniques to defend herself, her agility unmatched. The battle was brief but intense. The rogue faction was surprised by their speed, coordination, and sheer determination. In moments the path was clear. Breathing heavily, Elias looked at Leora. "We can't stay here." "Keep moving." As they continued through the canyon, the stars above Zithra shone brightly, reflecting off crystalline walls. Elias felt a strange sense of connection to this alien world. Despite the danger, despite the differences, he was reminded that courage, loyalty, and honor were universal. They transcended species, language, and culture. By the time they reached a safer area, away from immediate threats, Leora paused and looked at Elias. No words were spoken, yet her gratitude and admiration were clear. Elias knew that this journey had changed them both. Not only had they survived, but they had also begun to understand each other, two beings from different worlds, finding trust and respect in the midst of chaos. The rogue faction remained a threat, but for the first time Elias felt a spark of hope. If they could survive this night, if they could navigate the dangers ahead, they might just reach safety. And perhaps in doing so, they could lay the foundation for something greater than war. Something that could bridge two worlds and show that humanity's courage could shine, even in the heart of the unknown. As they settled briefly under the alien sky, Elias whispered quietly, more to himself than to Leora, "We've come this far, and we'll go further. Together." And for the first time, he felt that hope was not just a fragile dream, but a possibility. The rocky canyon stretched before Captain Elias Drake and Princess Leora like a maze of shadows and jagged cliffs. Every movement was deliberate, every step measured. The rogue faction was still on their trail, relentless and calculating. Elias knew that hesitation could be fatal. Every moment mattered. Every decision could determine whether they lived or died. "Keep close," Elias whispered, scanning the narrow paths with trained eyes. Leora matched his pace, her movements graceful yet purposeful. Despite her royal upbringing, she had adapted quickly to the harsh realities of survival. Elias admired her courage. It was one thing to face danger for duty. It was another to face it with calm determination, even when fear lingered. The canyon walls echoed with distant sounds, rolling rocks, the flutter of alien wings, and faint mechanical hums. Elias's instincts told him that danger lurked nearby. The rogue soldiers would anticipate predictable paths. The key to survival was unpredictability. He led Leora along a narrow ledge that overlooked a shimmering river below, its waters glowing with bioluminescent life. One wrong step could send them plummeting into the depths, but Elias moved with confidence, testing each foothold before advancing. "Almost there," he muttered, more to himself than to Leora. Suddenly, a sharp crack resonated through the canyon. A rock slide, triggered by enemy sensors or the unstable terrain, thundered toward them. Elias grabbed Leora, pulling her to safety as massive stones tumbled past. The ground shook violently beneath them, sending shards of rock skittering like projectiles. Heart pounding, Elias dragged her to a narrow alcove, shielding her from the falling debris. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice tense. Leora shook her head, brushing dust from her silver hair. Her eyes, wide but alert, met his. No words were needed. They understood each other perfectly. Danger had drawn them closer, forging a bond stronger than trust alone. Once the canyon settled into quiet, Elias scanned the horizon. The rogue faction would not stop. He knew that. Every route they had taken so far had been watched. They needed to move quickly, but they also needed a strategy. Blind flight could lead them into traps. "We must split their pursuit," Elias said, thinking aloud. "We'll create false trails and use the cliffs. They will follow what seems easiest. We take the harder path." Leora nodded, her understanding immediate. She gestured toward a narrow tunnel leading deeper into the cliffside. Elias agreed silently, and together they navigated the labyrinth of rock and shadow. The air was cooler here, carrying a faint scent of minerals and moisture. Strange fungi clung to the walls, glowing faintly, illuminating their path. As they moved, Leora began to speak in halting human words. "Humans. Brave, you. Risk life." Elias gave a small smile. "Courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about choosing to act even when fear is there." She absorbed his words, her gaze thoughtful. In her world, power often came from strength or position. She had seen loyalty and honor as tools, sometimes manipulated for advantage. Yet here was a human who acted purely on principle. It was a lesson she would not forget. Hours passed as they moved deeper into the cliffs. They encountered alien wildlife, creatures with sharp claws, glowing eyes, and swift movements. Each encounter was brief but dangerous. Elias taught Leora how to move silently, how to use her surroundings to her advantage, and how to anticipate threats. Every lesson, every shared challenge deepened their connection. She was learning not only to survive but to respect the values he represented: courage, honor, and selflessness. Eventually, they reached a plateau overlooking a valley. Below, the rogue faction's forces scoured the land, their patrols moving in patterns that suggested strategy and discipline. Elias knew that any direct confrontation would be fatal. They needed a distraction, something to divert the enemy while they escaped further. He turned to Leora. "We need to split their attention. Can you do something with the energy conduits below?" She nodded. With quick, precise movements, she manipulated the alien energy nodes, causing sparks and small explosions. The rogue soldiers looked up in alarm, shouting commands in their harsh language. The distraction worked perfectly, giving Elias and Leora the chance to move along a hidden ridge. As they crept along the ridge, the stars above Zithra began to appear, glittering through the gaps in the cliffs. Elias felt a strange sense of awe. Even in the midst of danger, the world held beauty. It reminded him why humans fought, why they explored, and why they believed in more than survival alone. Hours later, they reached a narrow bridge of crystalline rock, suspended over a deep chasm. The energy pulses along its surface were unpredictable, making the crossing dangerous. Elias tested the first steps, then motioned for Leora to follow. She moved carefully, placing her feet exactly where he indicated. Halfway across, the bridge trembled, threatening to collapse. Elias grabbed her hand, steadying her. Her trust in him was unwavering. Together, they made it to the other side safely, hearts racing but spirits unbroken. Beyond the bridge lay the Forest of Echoes, a place rumored to be haunted by ancient Zitharan spirits. Elias did not believe in ghosts, but he did believe in danger. The forest was dense, filled with twisted trees and glowing vines. Every sound echoed unnaturally, making it difficult to discern threats from natural noises. They moved cautiously, using the shadows to their advantage. Leora's senses were sharp. She pointed out hidden traps and warning signs that Elias might have missed. Together, they navigated the forest with skill and patience, each step bringing them closer to safety and further from the rogue faction's immediate reach. As night fell, Elias and Leora found a small clearing to rest. Exhaustion weighed on them, but neither allowed themselves to relax fully. The rogue soldiers were clever, and they would not stop until the princess was recaptured. Elias set up a perimeter of energy sensors and motion detectors, showing Leora how to use them. She watched intently, absorbing every detail. In these moments, Elias realized that she was not just learning for survival. She was learning to lead. The qualities of leadership, caution, strategy, observation, were already within her, waiting to be nurtured. During a brief moment of calm, Leora looked at Elias. "Why, you help me, even when humans and Zitharans fight?" Elias considered her question. "Because right and wrong don't belong to a species. They belong to every being who can choose. I choose to protect life. That's why I help you." Her gaze softened, admiration clear in her eyes. She had seen leaders make decisions for power, for politics, for advantage. Elias's choice was different. It was pure. It was human. The next morning, they resumed their journey, moving through the forest and along hidden paths. The rogue faction was still searching, but Elias's strategy and Leora's knowledge of her world allowed them to stay ahead. They crossed rivers, climbed cliffs, and navigated alien terrain that would have overwhelmed ordinary humans or Zitharans alike. During the journey, Leora began to speak more frequently, asking questions about human worlds, about Elias's home, about why he risked his life for strangers. Elias answered patiently, telling her stories of human courage, exploration, and the desire to protect what was good. She listened, fascinated, absorbing every word. By the time they reached the edge of the forest, Elias and Leora had not only survived the rogue faction's pursuit, but had also formed a bond that went beyond rescuer and rescued. They had become allies, partners in the truest sense, bound by courage, trust, and respect. As they paused on a cliff overlooking the valley below, Elias felt a strange sense of satisfaction. The journey had been perilous, filled with danger and uncertainty. Yet in these trials he had seen the best of both species, the bravery of humans and the potential for understanding in Zitherans. He turned to Leora. "We're not safe yet, but we've come far, and together, we can go further." Leora nodded, her silver eyes reflecting the distant stars. Though words were few, their meaning was clear. They would face whatever came next together, and as they descended into the valley, Elias knew that their journey was far from over. The rogue faction remained a threat. The challenges ahead would be even greater, but hope burned brighter than fear. For the first time in years, he felt that human courage, morality, and honor could shine even in the heart of a world that had long been an enemy. The pursuit had strengthened them, taught them, and brought them together. And Elias knew that whatever lay ahead, they would face it as one, human and Zitharan, united by a shared belief in what was right. The spires of Zithara's capital city, shimmering with bioluminescent light, stretched high into the alien sky. From a distance, the city looked serene and majestic, but Captain Elias Drake knew better. The palace at its heart was a fortress, heavily guarded, and now, with Princess Leora at his side, he faced the greatest challenge yet. The rogue faction still lingered in the shadows, but their main concern was the alien queen, the ruler who would decide the fate of both Leora and the human who had risked everything to save her. Elias approached the palace gates with careful steps, his mind racing. This was not a battlefield of clear rules or visible enemies. This was a test of courage, honor, and the ability to act rightly under scrutiny. Leora walked beside him, silent but alert. The bond they had formed during their perilous journey gave him confidence. Together they had survived threats that would have broken lesser individuals. As they entered the outer courtyard, Elias was struck by the alien architecture. The palace was alive with energy, its walls pulsating faintly like the heartbeat of the city itself. Guards clad in sleek armor patrolled the paths, their glowing eyes scanning constantly. Elias motioned for Leora to stay close and instructed her on how to move quietly and stay out of sight. They approached the main gates cautiously. A guard stepped forward, its voice resonating in a tone that was both mechanical and musical. "Identify yourselves." Elias stepped forward, his voice firm and unwavering. "I am Captain Elias Drake of the United Earth Forces. I have brought Princess Leora safely from the rogue faction. We seek an audience with the Queen." The guard's eyes narrowed, scanning both of them. After a tense moment, it signaled and the gate slowly opened. Elias led Leora through the grand halls, each step echoing against walls that shimmered with alien energy. The palace was filled with advisors, scribes, and warriors, all observing the human intruder with suspicion and curiosity. Finally, they reached the throne room. The alien queen sat on a platform that seemed to float slightly above the ground, her presence commanding and regal. Her skin shimmered in shades of violet and silver, and her eyes glowed with a piercing intensity. She studied Elias carefully, her gaze sharp as she assessed whether he was friend, foe, or something in between. "Captain Drake," she said, her voice both melodic and powerful. "You have brought my daughter safely. Yet you are human, the enemy. Why should I trust you?" Elias stood tall, meeting her gaze without hesitation. "Your daughter's life mattered. I acted to protect her because it was the right thing to do. Not for reward, not for glory, because protecting life is what matters." The queen's eyes softened slightly, but she remained cautious. Suddenly, alarms blared through the palace. The rogue faction had launched an attack, striking at the very heart of the capital. Guards shouted, and the city's energy shields flared to life. Elias knew that words would not be enough to prove his loyalty. Actions would speak louder. "Stay behind me," Elias told Leora, drawing his weapon. "We defend the palace and everyone inside." The first wave of attackers stormed through the outer gates. Elias moved with precision, coordinating with Zitharan guards using human tactics in combination with the aliens' unique abilities. He directed the defense, neutralizing threats and creating openings for the Queen's forces to counterattack. Leora, inspired by his courage, assisted where she could, using her knowledge of the palace to guide defenders and avoid ambushes. The battle was intense. Energy blasts lit the corridors, and the sound of combat echoed like thunder. Elias felt the pressure of responsibility on his shoulders. Every decision, every action could mean life or death for dozens of people. Yet he did not waver. Each time a guard faltered or a path became blocked, Elias adapted, thinking quickly and acting decisively. At one point, a group of rogue soldiers broke through a side entrance, threatening the Queen's advisors. Elias intercepted them, using a combination of agility, tactical skill, and sheer determination to hold them off. Leora watched, awe evident in her expression as the human continued to fight with honor and courage. Finally, the tide turned. The rogue faction's forces, unprepared for the unity and skill of both humans and Zitherans working together, began to retreat. Elias took a final stand at the main entrance, ensuring that the Queen and her daughter were safe. When the last of the attackers fled, the palace erupted into cautious relief. The Queen descended from her platform, moving gracefully toward Elias. She studied him closely, seeing the truth of his actions reflected in the sweat, grime, and determination etched on his face. Her advisors whispered among themselves, astonished that a human had not only survived but had led the defense so effectively. "You have proven yourself," the Queen said finally, her voice steady and commanding. "Not just through words, but through courage and honor. You risked your life to protect my daughter and my people. That is rare and valuable." Elias bowed slightly, a gesture of respect. "I did what anyone should do. I protected life. That is all." The Queen regarded him for a long moment, then extended a hand. "You are no longer merely a human intruder. You are family. You have shown that courage, honor, and selflessness are not limited by species. You have earned your place among us." Leora stepped forward, her eyes shining with admiration. "Mother, he saved me. He risked everything." The Queen nodded, acknowledging both her daughter and Elias. She then addressed her court. "Let this be known. Humanity is not only capable of conflict but also of great courage. Let this act serve as a bridge between our worlds." Elias felt a mix of humility and pride. He had entered Zithra as an outsider, a soldier on a mission. Now he was recognized not just as a savior, but as a symbol of what humans could represent: honor, bravery, and the moral strength to act rightly, even among enemies. The celebration that followed was unlike any Elias had experienced. Zitherans, initially wary, approached him with respect, offering gestures of acknowledgement and appreciation. Leora stayed by his side, her presence a reminder of the journey they had endured together. During the quiet moments that followed, the Queen spoke to Elias privately. "Your actions today may change the future of both our species. Trust, honor, and courage are rare qualities. You have shown them all in abundance." Elias nodded. "I did what I believed was right. I hope it helps both our worlds find a better path." The Queen smiled faintly. "It will, you have already begun. But remember, peace is fragile, and the choices we make now will shape the future." As the day turned into night, Elias looked out over the city he had helped defend. The lights shimmered like stars against the alien sky. He realized that this mission, which had begun as a perilous task in enemy territory, had transformed into something far greater. He had not only saved a life, but had also demonstrated the potential for unity, trust, and respect between species. Leora approached him, her expression thoughtful. "You are different from what I expected. Humans can be honorable." Elias smiled gently. "We all have choices. I choose to act with courage and honor. That is what matters." As they stood together on the palace balcony overlooking the city below, Elias felt a sense of hope. The rogue faction had been defeated. The Queen's confidence in him was established, and a fragile trust had been built between humans and Zitherans. Yet he knew the journey was far from over. Challenges would come, alliances would be tested, and both species would need to learn from one another. But for now, Elias allowed himself a rare moment of peace. He had risked everything to protect life, and in doing so, he had shown that human courage and honor could shine, even in the most alien and dangerous of worlds. And as he looked at Leora and the Queen, Elias understood that this bond, born of trust, courage, and moral strength, would guide the future. Humanity had proven its worth, not through domination or conquest, but through the simple, profound act of doing what was right. The alien Queen's words echoed in his mind. "You are family now." For Elias, that declaration carried more weight than any title, medal, or rank. It was a recognition of what mattered most: courage, selflessness, and the ability to stand for what is right, even when the world seems against you. And with that, Elias Drake, human and hero, prepared for the final step in a journey that would change not only his life, but the fate of two worlds. The palace of Zythera glowed softly under the light of twin moons, casting long, shimmering shadows across the terraces and gardens. Captain Elias Drake stood beside Princess Leora, surveying the city below. It had been days since the rogue faction had been defeated, and the Queen had taken time to reflect on the events that had unfolded. Peace, at least for the moment, was holding, but Elias knew that this calm was fragile, and the lessons they had learned would determine the future. Leora spoke quietly, her voice carrying both awe and curiosity. Humans. They can be brave, they can be trusted. Elias smiled faintly, appreciating the simplicity and honesty of her words. Courage and trust are choices, not traits tied to any one species. Anyone can choose to act rightly. The princess nodded, her silver eyes reflecting both admiration and a newfound understanding. Elias had seen this transformation in her over the past days. From a royal sheltered by status and privilege, to a young leader aware of the strength of others, even those from a former enemy world. Inside the palace, the alien queen summoned a council to discuss the future. The chamber was vast, filled with glowing energy conduits and intricate architecture that reflected Zythera's advanced technology. Elias followed Leora, moving with cautious respect. He was no longer a stranger in this world, but he still understood the need for careful behavior. One wrong step could undo all the goodwill he had earned. The Queen's advisors observed him with curiosity and a hint of skepticism. Yet Elias remained calm, demonstrating the poise and confidence that had carried him through countless battles. Leora walked beside him, speaking when necessary, interpreting or clarifying for those who hesitated to understand the human's actions. The Queen addressed the council. Captain Elias Drake has proven himself not only in courage but in honor and loyalty. He risked his life to save my daughter, to protect my people and to defend our home. For that, I recognize him as family, a symbol of the potential for understanding between our species. Murmurs ran through the council. Some were skeptical, some inspired. Elias understood their hesitation. Trust was not given lightly in a world that had known war and betrayal for centuries. But he also knew that actions spoke louder than words, and the actions he had taken, facing danger, saving lives, and uniting defenders against a common threat, were undeniable. After the council, the Queen invited Elias and Leora to walk in the palace gardens. Bioluminescent plants glowed softly around them, casting gentle light on the paths. Elias felt the weight of what had happened, but he allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. The journey had been dangerous, filled with threats that could have ended in failure or death. Yet through it all, humanity's courage and moral strength had been recognized, not as conquerors or invaders, but as allies capable of honor. Leora spoke softly, her voice tinged with excitement. Mother, you have seen, humans can protect, not just fight. Captain Elias, he is different. The Queen regarded Elias with thoughtful eyes. Difference is not the measure of worth. Actions are, and his actions have proven invaluable. He embodies qualities that are rare: courage, selflessness, and the ability to inspire trust even among those who fear him. Elias bowed his head slightly in respect. I did what I believed was right. That is all I can do in any world. The Queen's expression softened. And that is why you are family now. Your presence here is a reminder that the future can be shaped by understanding, not conflict. That hope is possible even after decades of war. Over the next few days, Elias worked closely with the Queen and her council to strengthen security, ensure stability, and build the foundations for a new alliance. He shared human strategies of defense, problem-solving, and negotiation, always careful to respect Zytheran traditions and intelligence. Leora continued to assist, acting as a bridge between her people and the human outsider. Together, they studied maps, evaluated patrols, and discussed ways to protect both human and Zytheran interests. Each session brought small victories. Plans were improved, alliances tested, and understanding grew. The rogue faction had been defeated, but their presence had highlighted the fragility of peace. Elias knew that lasting trust would take time, patience, and courage. During moments of quiet, Leora would walk with him through the gardens or along palace terraces. She asked questions about Earth, humans, and the values he held dear. Elias answered patiently, sharing stories of human resilience, the importance of protecting life, and the strength of honor and courage. Leora listened with fascination, absorbing lessons that could guide her future leadership. One evening, as the twin moons reflected off the crystalline walls of the palace, the queen joined them. She regarded Elias with a mixture of curiosity and respect. "You have changed the perception of humans here, not through words, but through deeds. Your courage is now a story that will be told for generations." Elias nodded humbly. "I only did what anyone should do. Protect life, stand for what is right." The queen smiled, a rare and warm expression. "Then let this story be a foundation. Let it remind our people that cooperation, understanding, and courage can overcome even the deepest divides." Leora stood beside her mother, her expression proud yet thoughtful. "Captain Elias, you are more than a protector. You are family. I hope we can continue to learn from each other." Elias felt a warmth that went beyond pride, recognition by the queen, trust from the princess, and respect from an entire species. This was a moment few humans would ever experience. Yet he remained humble, knowing that his actions were part of something larger, a fragile hope for a better future. In the following weeks, the palace became a hub of learning and cooperation. Humans and Zitherans worked side by side, exchanging knowledge, tactics, and strategies. Elias helped train defenders, advised on emergency protocols, and assisted in diplomatic discussions. Leora observed, learning the importance of trust, collaboration, and courage beyond her immediate instincts. During one session, Elias spoke to a group of Zitheran youths. "Courage is not about fighting. It's about standing for what is right, even when it is difficult. Honor is not given, it is shown through actions. And trust. Trust is built by keeping promises and protecting others." The Zitherans listened intently, absorbing every word. Elias could see the beginnings of change in their perspectives, a subtle shift toward cooperation and respect. Humanity's example had taken root, not as invaders, not as rulers, but as allies who acted with moral strength. One afternoon, as Elias and Leora walked through a palace courtyard, she spoke softly. "Captain Elias, do you think humans and Zitherans can really live together? After all, the wars?" Elias looked at her, his expression serious yet hopeful.
"Yes, if we remember that courage, honor, and respect are stronger than fear."
"If we choose to act rightly, even when it's difficult, that is how trust is built. That is how worlds can change." Leora smiled faintly, a mixture of hope and determination in her eyes. "Then we will try, together." Elias nodded. The words resonated deeply. Their journey had begun as a mission of survival, but it had become something far greater, a bridge between species, a lesson in courage and morality, and proof that humanity's best qualities could shine, even in the heart of an alien world. As the sun rose over Zithera, casting light on the palace and the city below, Elias stood with Leora and the queen. The twin moons faded, leaving the sky clear and bright. The city was alive, vibrant, and safe for now. The rogue faction had been defeated, but the greater victory was in the hearts and minds of those who had witnessed courage, honor, and selflessness in action. The queen placed a hand on Elias's shoulder. "You are family now, not just in name but in spirit. Let this bond guide the future, for both our people." Elias looked at the horizon, feeling the weight and hope of responsibility. He had risked his life to protect an alien princess, faced dangers no human could easily imagine, and proven that humanity's courage and moral strength could stand alongside the bravest of Zitherans. And in that moment, he understood fully, the mission had been more than a rescue. It had been a statement, a declaration that courage, honor, and selflessness could bridge worlds, inspire trust, and forge bonds stronger than fear or war. He turned to Leora and the queen, smiling with quiet determination. "Then let us build that future together." The princess nodded. The queen smiled, and for the first time, Elias felt a true weight of hope, a fragile but shining possibility that humanity and Zithera could stand as allies, learning from one another, united by courage, honor, and the choice to act rightly. And so the human who had risked everything was no longer merely a soldier. He was family, a symbol and a beacon, a reminder that the best of humanity could shine even among the stars.